Great. Okay. Have James, can you just see whether there's anybody else out there that might be joining us? Okay. Yes, you got it. Yeah, look. Nice, really good. Stuart, are we online? We are. Hello, everyone online. Welcome. No, we'll wait for Simone because she is on her way and then we will get going.
But this is where the audio is captured and you sort of direct it towards that.
When we get to the slides bit, how do you leave the slides on?
Sam is in charge of the slides.
Okay, so remind me when we need to go quite quickly at the end. Yes, when you get to the bit where it was finished the pillars, then just click through the
Was that us on?
No, that's the clip. You know, there's the clip.
Good.
I'm sure I can make it.
Okay, Rob, all present and correct?
Yes.
Great. Okay, well, welcome everyone to Volleyball England's 2022 AGM. Just a few opening remarks from me, and then I'm going to run through the agenda. So firstly, a thank you to everybody who's here in person. It's great to see real people in real rooms, and it's great to see so many of the Volleyball England Foundation who have had their AGM this morning. So thank you all for coming. Graham, a welcome to you as an independent, sort of not connected person to volleyball, but thank you for giving up some of your Saturday to come and see us. And similarly, thank you to all of the people who are watching this via the YouTube channel. And if I'm correct in my assumption, this stays as a live link that people can watch at other times. So if you are watching this at your leisure, sometime on Sunday or whenever, we hope you find it quite an interesting and informative process. I just also want to add a few thanks right at the start because I've got some updates that I want to give later on. So in no particular order, a real big thank you to the Hub staff for all of their incredible efforts, not only in terms of setting up today and making the room look as great as it does, but also for the absolute fantastic work that they have done over the year. Sam in particular as our interim CEO and Rob as our deputy CEO, thank you very much for grabbing hold of the reins and doing such a good job. So thank you, Hub staff. I'd like to thank my board colleagues who we've got a lot sitting here at the top table. Some couldn't be here today, but thank you to the board because it's been a real privilege to be able to be the chair of that board and to work with such great people. And I think we've had some fun as well, which is much appreciated. Similarly, thank you to the subgroup chairs, many obviously they are board members, and to the working group leads for their incredible efforts in terms of making it work. Thank you to the volunteers, because without volunteers, our sport would be absolutely nothing. We wouldn't be able to deliver what we do. So very, very much appreciated. And I just want to pick on some specific volunteers within that. So Simone, Janet, here on behalf of the foundation, thank you very much for your efforts. They are incredibly well appreciated, and I'm sure we're going to go from strength to strength, and it will be fantastic in the future. So thank you for that. And thank you to Richard Callicott and others who sit on British Volleyball Foundation or Federation in terms of their efforts when we come together as a British federation. So thank you, Richard. And Richard, I hope if you're listening that you're feeling a lot better today, because I know you're unable to be with us today. And then finally, really a thank you to the people who are working on our behalf at the Commonwealth Games. And Claire, I'm going to pick you out very specifically because you've been doing a massive amount within that. but there are a lot of people working incredibly hard to make sure volleyball is portrayed in an incredibly positive way. So thank you to all those. I've run out of thank yous now. You'll be pleased. You'll be pleased to know. Right, I'm going to move on to the agenda if I can, Sam. So running down, just as you can, if you can see on the screen, which I'm not sure you can if you're watching on the YouTube channel, so I'm going to read it out. So number one, after my welcome, is a review of the 2021 minutes, and we'll do that in a second. Then we're going to present the annual report and the financial report for the meeting to receive. Then we will go into the voting process, and within that we have a number of appointments to talk about, and we've got some resolutions relating to the articles. So we'll take those in that order. I'm then going to do a brief update on a few key points that I think are relevant to raise at the AGM. Simon is then going to do something on the Volleyball England Foundation, which would be great to receive. Claire is going to talk about Birmingham 2022, and then we will open up to questions. When we get to the questions point, we're going to do that as questions relating to the subject matter of the meeting. So if you've got questions that don't relate to the content of the meeting, we'll close the AGM formally, and then we'll take those questions afterwards. So the questions we'll take within the AGM will relate to the content of the meeting. If I can just move on to apologies. So apologies that we have are Frida Busi, Phil French, Jake Sheaf, Richard Callicott, Andy Jones, Bob Pickens and Charlie Orton. So apologies received from all of those people who would have liked to have been here but unfortunately couldn't.
And Jess.
And Jess. Okay, thank you. Agatha, I should have said thank you to you as well. Agatha is here to help us with the minutes, and yeah, as always, Agatha, lovely to see you, and thank you for all your efforts. Okay, we have the minutes of the meeting sent out in the AGM pack from our meeting of the 24th of July last year. So if I can take any comments relating to those minutes, and if not, can I sign those as an accurate record? Any comments? No? Okay, well, we'll receive those as a true record of our meeting last year. Great. Okay, so we will move on. Sam, annual report.
Yes, thank you. So I get the pleasure of talking about some of the key highlights from our year, which is a fantastic privilege. But I just want to start by saying, before we now live in unrestricted times, when we started the season, it was not plain sailing in terms of what was required of our clubs and volunteers to get the sport back up and running. And I just add another thank you, and I've got more to come to what I'm about to say next as well, but thanks to James and the Return to Play working group who continued to work at the beginning of this season, particularly in a tricky run up to Christmas where we were still dealing with COVID in quite a severe way at that point. So thank you for all of your efforts, and thank you to all of the clubs for your efforts, your volunteers, for getting the sport back up and running this season. So the first key highlight that I wanted to focus in on is our junior volleyball. Definitely couldn't give this a miss this year. It's been absolutely phenomenal. Unprecedented rise in the number of junior participants, and a fantastic response from our competitions working group to help us to facilitate competitions to get those athletes, those players into the sport. We had 290 teams take part across a tiered competition through the season, culminating in the finals, which had about 112 teams taking part in. Absolutely dominated by Richmond, who you can see on the slide, if you can see, winning 7 out of 11 of the titles available at the National Cup finals. So thank you to everyone who's made that happen, particularly the comps working group, Rob, in your role as the A-Service strategic manager as well at the time. I think the way that you responded to the demand that we had was absolutely fantastic. So thank you for all of your efforts on that. Next key highlight from the year is our new website. Been a long time coming, a lot of hard work from Stuart, and thanks to our partners at Fluid who've been with us for over 10 years now to help us to get this through, and the IT working group. I hope you'll agree it looks a lot better. It's fantastic. I know some people are still getting to grips with how it works and the orientation of it, but generally a much better customer experience. And we do value all of the feedback that we've had on that, and please do continue to drop your feedback in on that. On to our, I think I've got a slide missing. I was going to talk about the Bellows and their World Tour success. The Bellows won the first ever British gold medal at a World Tour event this year, so phenomenal success from them. We've also just had news overnight that our athletes have done incredibly well at Nevza. The Bellows won gold at Nevza, Jess and Daisy won gold, and Issa and Freddie got silver. And Stuart's nodding away over there. Thank you, Stuart, for keeping me right on that. So fantastic success for them, and great time for beach volleyball with Birmingham just around the corner as well. We're incredibly proud of all of our athletes across all disciplines. Obviously, we've got a big focus on beach volleyball at the moment. And I must mention the Commonwealth Games selection event, which was absolutely phenomenal for a number of reasons. If you were watching it, particularly if you watched the women's final, you'll have seen it was an absolute nail-biter of a final, and just true testament to the depth that we are developing in our athletes and our beach programme. Massive credit to Issa and Freddie, who just fell short, and Ellie and Anea on the women's side, who both put up a fantastic competition against the Bellows, and Jess and Daisy, who went through as our qualifying athletes for the Commonwealth Games. Big thanks to Deep Dish, our partners there, for helping to coordinate that event as well. So the next element is the club support that you can see on the slide there now. Obviously, clubs are at the heart of our strategy and a big focal area for us. And we're really pleased with the progress that we've made over the last year. So from club health checks to developing club toolkits, trying to work in a much more bespoke way for our clubs so that we have a more of a ground-up approach to how we operate, so helping clubs to achieve their aspirations. We're early on the journey in that. We recognise that there's a lot more for us to do, but we're really pleased with the progress. And thank you to all the clubs that are working with us to help us develop those programmes and toolkits. We hope you like the new club newsletter. We're pleased with how it's been rolling out over this initial period, but again, please do get your feedback in and let us know what you think. We're really pleased as well to be bringing in more partner discounts for our members. So our recent renewal of our contract with Sportsets, we can have a discount on volleyballs. We're just about to launch an agreement with Universal Services for a discount on equipment as well. And these are all benefits that will pass directly to our clubs to access and hopefully support as the new season gets going. Linked to our club support and club development, I just wanted to touch on our coach education and our education in general. Obviously, coming out of the pandemic and lockdowns, we had a lot of demand for people wanting to take up coaching awards. We're really pleased to have been able to facilitate around 320 learners through the Level 1 course. That's more than we've ever done in the period of time that we've delivered that. Appreciate we've got lots more to do and a new Level 2 course to come, and a lot of demand for that, and we are working on it. A little bit of catching up still to do, but pleased with how far we've come with that too. And the final area for me that I just wanted to focus in on as well is our Sport England funding. So this year we had confirmation that Sport England will be our partners. We will be a system partner to Sport England for the next 5 years. That equates to £2.1 million over that period of time. In addition to that, we secured innovation and digital funding of around £225,000. Thank you, £225,000, and thanks to Janet for your support and foundation support and Oaks Consultancy that helped us to get that bid together in double quick time to achieve that. In addition to that, we have also benefited from Sport England funding for medal preparation for the Commonwealth Games. So the athletes that I've just mentioned there have all been in receipt of funding to help prepare for the Commonwealth Games, and the Bellows and Jess and Daisy will continue to receive that support. So we're incredibly grateful to Sport England, our partners. Sport England funding is a privilege, not a right, and we appreciate everything that our partners do to support us.
Brilliant. Thank you, Sam.
Thank you.
Great. Okay, so moving on to our next agenda item. Well, no, in fact, I don't have to get any acceptance, do I? It's just received by the meeting in terms of the annual report. So, okay, pretty happy with that. So if we move on to our finance update, and Andreas, Kev, I think I don't know who's leading, but
Yeah, I'm good. Is it okay if I go over there? Because I won't be able to see it from here.
absolutely okay if you go over there.
Thank you.
For those on YouTube, we've got a person moving very quickly.
Thank you. So these are the numbers for the year. Before I start, it's very important to say that the auditors are actually coming on Monday, the 18th of July to audit the accounts. So instead of showing draft accounts, we're actually showing the management accounts, which have got a little bit more detail. So it should be slightly more interesting rather than just seeing sort of overheads in total. But don't worry, I've got too many slides. I know everyone's not as excited by the numbers as I am. So I've got too many. I've chosen to stand up because I do find that sometimes I'll talk about a figure, and by the time you've found that figure, I've gone on to the next one. So I'm actually going to point to them. So the important figures are our revenue for the year is this column here, and we've got it in our strategic strands. But it shows that our total revenue, Volleyball England's total, is 109,767. So I'll call that 1.1 million pounds. So that's our total revenue for the year. That is actually this figure here, 429. That's against the previous year. So it's showing that we've gone up 430k compared to the previous year. So it's better than previous year, but we'd expect that because of COVID. We're expecting next year to be even higher because this did have COVID in the first sort of quarter of the year. So that's our total revenue, and this is it broken down by stream. What this part shows is compared to the budget, what surplus we've made compared to the budget. And you can see that Volleyball for Life did just about what we expected. So we said the board set them a target to make a surplus of nearly 55k. They made 56, 57. So it was actually up to £2,000. So you could say that's spot on. There was a slight, the two areas in there, which is the sort of coaching that do at local university and across the universities. That was really positive and was significantly up in there. But the training camps for the first quarter of the year were down because we weren't doing them because of COVID. So they sort of netted off, if you like, but they're the two sort of exciting parts in there. Get, keep, grow. So total revenue, £94,000. If you see, we made a surplus of 24, but we did expect to make 43. So slightly down 18k. That's mainly because some of the students in the first part of the year was down, but also we've got half a person in there extra in addition to the budget. Hopefully that's working well. Well, it is working well, and we're servicing the clubs. The real sort of area that looks fantastic, if you look at these numbers, is an ACE service. So the board set that it would be break even, and they actually made £126,000. That looks really good, and then finance and governance doesn't look so good. There is actually a person that was budgeted in an ACE service, but their salary actually went, we moved them. So if you take that out, these two pluses here, that would be about 90k. So an ACE service still was better than the budget by 90k. That was MBL. It was the fact that the commercial revenue was higher than we set when we did the budget, and the courses were all very positive compared to budget. So absolutely fantastic in that area. If I talk about finance and governance, as I say, this is about 40k if we move the person where they should go. 40k, and that is the digital transformation, so the website that we've done and the work that we've done on the digital transformation, starting that going, and then hopefully carrying on that next year. So this is an investment to try and help all the clubs deal with us in a better way and be able to interact with us in a better way, and that's something that we've needed to do. Overall, we made a surplus of 47, and we said we'd make a surplus of 11. So with COVID at the start of the year, we still did 36k better. So I would say that's pretty good. I know we don't want to make huge surpluses, but what we are doing is we're using that for this year to pay for some of the digital transformation work that we've spoken about. So just my last slide. You've already spoken about this, Sam. Fantastic year in terms of sporting and awards. You look at the figures there, and a lot of work goes behind the scenes in preparing for that, as Sam mentioned. But yeah, system partner, that money is the money that we've got. Some of it is for 3 years, most of it is for 5 years. It means that Volleyball England has got exactly the same money for the next 5 years, 3 and 5 years, as we've got today. So that's a really good achievement. Some sports bodies maybe have had reductions, but we've got the exact same amount of money. So we know that we're pretty secure now, hopefully for the next 5 years. Commonwealth Games prep, Sam, you mentioned that's the last £24,000 of that we've still got to claim, but most of that has actually been used and gone out now. And then the Innovation and Digital Fund, fantastic award, and that's to keep the Commonwealth Games going afterwards. The reason I mentioned the budget there is that's this year's budget now, so 22-23, and what I've tried to show there is that the income growth is up 42%. So the board have been very challenging to actually, they want to keep growing the sport, and so this year's budget is up another 42% from that 1.1 million that you saw in terms of revenue, and that's all about the MVL, commercial activity growth. So it's great to sort of be involved in a sport like that that's growing and being pushed. This next item is a little bit technical, so I'll try not to bore you too much. But this is £228,000 worth of income that's on our balance sheet that we've received. We've already received from Sport England, but we haven't spent it yet. If you like, we've saved it. And what that's going to be used for, the majority of it, for this year, is the digital transformation. So a lot of work on there. That's a key area for us over the next 12 months to make sure that the clubs, that we're a lot easier to deal with. And so that's great that we've got that money put aside that we can use for this. We've got closing reserves at the end. When the budget period finishes, we'll have closing reserves in volleyball of £80,000. That is the board sets the task to try and make sure that we've got enough reserves that if the worst did happen, we could cover all of our employment liabilities for the whole team, and that covers all of that. So we're now in a position that if the worst did happen, we can cover all of that liability. So this current year's budget is actually break even. So we don't need more reserves now. So all the money that we get, we're going to spend on sort of activities. And finally, just cash is king, and this is where most companies do struggle. You can show all the nice figures, but if you haven't got the cash, you can't keep going. And we're in a really healthy position. So as at the year end, we've got £456,000 in the bank. As at now, or yesterday, close of business last night, we've got £532,000. So we've got plenty of cash. That is this money here, and it's also the fact that Sport England are now paying us 6 months. So the money we received for the first 6 months of the year is in the bank to September, and we'll get the next tranche after that. So hopefully that gives you confidence that we've got the finances under control and we've got money in the bank. Okay.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you. Come and rejoin us. Good. We're not going to take any questions now, but if we need to bring the slides back up at the end in response to a question, we'll do that. So if the AGM can receive that financial update, and Kev, thank you very much again for pulling that together. We will now move into the voting part. Claire, I think you're going to do a little bit of an update in terms of procedures, and then we'll just run through each of the areas of voting in the sequence as they are in the pack. Thanks, Claire.
Thank you. So by the stated closing time, which is 5 PM on Thursday, the 23rd of June, then we've received 62 appointment forms, either appointing a representative or a proxy to vote today at the AGM. Actually, 4 of those appointed someone to vote in the room that aren't here, so we will have a total of 58 votes as we go through the process today for each of the resolutions. Some of those votes have been submitted to appointed representatives or proxies that are in the room today. So you'll see various people popping their voting cards up, and everyone should have received their voting cards if they think they're a proxy or a representative. And if you haven't, shout now, I guess, but everyone's looking good. The chair has also received 49 proxy votes, so that's a lot of pieces of paper, and they've been instructed to vote by the relevant person appointing the chair in 41 instances, and 8 of them are at their discretion. So that gives you the overview of where we are. So I'd like to ask for a couple of volunteers to be tellers to count the votes as we go through.
I don't mind.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Janet. Okay, so I'll take us through each of the resolutions in turn. What we've got on the agenda today is 7 resolutions that are ordinary resolutions, so they require a simple majority to be passed, so more than 50%. And we've got 1 vote, which is a special resolution, and that requires 75% or higher majority in order to be passed. So resolution number 1 is the appointment of the auditors. So the resolution is to reappoint Duncan and Topless as auditor of the company, to hold office from the conclusion of this meeting until the conclusion of the next general meeting of the company, at which statement of accounts are laid, and to authorise the directors to fix their remuneration. So in your voting packs, you should have something that says resolution 1 on it.
Yep.
So if I take votes for first. I mean, good luck here,
That's 8 and 37, is it?
37 plus 8, yes, correct.
Okay. 54? Yeah. Didn't realise these numbers were so complicated.
Yeah, be careful what you volunteer for.
Any votes against?
0.
I've got a
And
card, I'm
then,
going to put it up.
Any abstentions? That's good because that totals 58. Well done, tellers. 1 down. Okay, so now we move on to the second resolution, which is, or second group of resolutions we've got here. So you should have 2 sets of cards for these. So first, these are relating to the appointment of directors. So the first one is to appoint David Reed in accordance with the company's articles of association as an elected director of the company. So if we can have votes for first.
There we go, get myself organised.
9 and 26. 30.
36.
36, yeah.
Against
15.
and abstentions.
7.
36. Yeah, that adds up. Thanks, Simon. Okay, the next one is to reappoint Richard Harrison, who is retiring by rotation in accordance with the company's articles of association as an elected director of the company. Can we go votes for?
Oh, hang on a sec. I knew I'd blow my...
42.
42.
Okay, votes against
5.
and abstentions.
9.
We're short. Should we just do that one again? So votes for.
Oh, you did one, got you one now.
No, I didn't.
You didn't have 25, 40.
I did.
You got 19.
No, 19 was the one before.
This is Richard.
No, that was,
Okay.
yeah, that was what we had last time.
Okay.
33, 35, 38,
42.
40, 42.
42.
Against. That's easy.
5.
Abstentions.
9. It's 56.
56. Has everyone met hold on their form?
How many should we add up to?
58.
So you're down 2.
Down 2. Can you count the number of pubs on there? Just make sure the numbers are.
Oh, crikey, with my glasses.
Yeah, let me, did you look at?
Andreas will do this one, I'll do this one. So. That's correct, 8.
Correct, 25.
25.
Bob, can you check on the spreadsheet?
Yep.
It's like a Tory leadership book, isn't it?
Okay. Just hold them up again while Bob's checking the spreadsheet. It's got to be there somewhere, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. How many is your adults together? 8, 25 and 8, 33. That's
Got a different number then. We've got a different number.
41, 42.
41, 42, I put 42.
Yes.
42.
Okay, let's just park that one while Rob checks the spreadsheet and we'll do the others. So the next one set of resolutions is resolution 3. So the first one is to elect Nick Heckford, who is retiring by rotation in accordance with the company's framework document as the officials delivery lead of the company. Votes for.
$55.
55. Votes against.
1,
Abstentions.
2.
That's right. Okay.
Hey.
Yeah, you're back on track. Okay. The next one is to elect Nick Shaffrey, who is retiring by rotation in accordance with the company's framework document as the children and young people delivery lead of the company. Votes for.
I'm getting the hang of this now. Blue and green together.
$53.
53.
Against.
0.
0.
Abstentions.
5.
58. Okay. Perfect. The next one is to elect Luke Thomas in accordance with the company's framework document as the coaches lead of the company. 4 votes for.
Give me 2 seconds.
Yours is the hard one, don't I?
I do apologise about being difficult.
54.
4 votes against.
0.
Vote abstentions.
4.
4. Okay, and then the last one in this section is to elect Steve Matthews in accordance with the company's framework document as the sitting volleyball lead of the company. Votes for.
$56.
56.
Votes against.
0.
Abstentions.
3.
Okay, we can start again. Votes for.
Oh, 38 and 8.
54. 54.
So sorry.
56.
Only 55.
5.
55. Okay, perfect. Just realised obviously each of these have passed. They've gone over 50%. I'm not going to work out a percentage, but they're over 50%.
We've got the percentages.
I don't think we need to worry about percentages. Do we know the, have we identified where we're missing that vote, or do we need to hold?
Adam's number, which is the most complicated. Adam's is correct.
Okay, let's do the last resolution first. So resolution 4, that the articles of association of the company are amended as set out in Annex 1 of the notice. Votes for.
$34.
34. Votes against.
18.
18. And abstentions.
6.
6. So that resolution will not pass because that was the 75% resolution.
Now I figured it out. There was 2 people that didn't vote anyway for the
Okay.
So they were classed as
Abstentions.
There's 2 additional abstentions.
So to confirm for Richard, we have 42 for, 5 against, and 11 abstentions.
Okay,
Okay, thank you, everyone.
great. So the first 3 blocks all passed. Resolution 4 didn't pass.
Correct.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you for all, and thank you to our tellers for that.
Thank you.
Yeah, you didn't expect that. It was a good job we didn't serve wine at lunch, wasn't it? Because there would have been some serious maths going. Okay, so we are now going to move on to our next part of the agenda, which is me. So that's good. Okay, so there are 2 things that I'd like to update the meeting on. The first I'll do, and then the second I'm going to sort of make a comment before I do it, and because I might need some colleague intervention if I get my facts subtly wrong. So the first update is obviously we were very sad when Sue left us to go and join Badminton England. I actually had a meeting 2 weeks ago with Sue, and she's missing us all, but she is really enjoying her new role as Chief Executive of Badminton England. So a massive thank you to Sue, but equally very best of luck in her new role. So we have gone into a process or a recruitment process. Sport England kindly helped us with that process by providing us with some funds to be able to go and get a recruiter. We appointed an organisation following a tender process called PSD, who are a London-based company that have placed many of the CEOs and chairs in a lot of the governing bodies across the UK. So very reputable firm, and they have acted in an incredibly positive way in helping us with that. Very pleasingly, we had an incredible response, lots of inquiries, lots of applications, and some really, high caliber people came to the party, which is really very encouraging. As a result of the recruitment process, the recruiter provided the nominations committee and through that to the board with a short list of 10 people. In addition, they provided us with a peripheral list of a further 10 people. We were provided with the CVs of all of the initial 10, but the nominations committee requested the CVs for the secondary block of 10 as well. So as a nominations committee, we considered 20 applications and looked at those 20 applications. We created a long-ish shortlist of 12 people. And the reason that we did that was we felt the caliber of the people that applied for the job, it warranted us having a really exhaustive look at that group. Last Tuesday, we ran an assessment centre here in Loughborough, and the assessment centre was a very interactive process where we engaged all of the candidates came to see us on the same day. All of the candidates interacted together in a series of different assessment processes. What we also did is we invited all the hub staff to meet prospective candidates. So we took a sounding from the staff as to their new boss, who did they like, what did they feel, which I feel was very positive. And we included 2 people from within the sport who had no connection to nominations committee or the board, but we valued their opinion and their input into the day. As a result of that assessment centre, almost without fail, the candidates went back to the recruiter and said, successful or not successful, it was a fantastic day. It was a great illustration of volleyball. It was a very positive process. Thank you for including us. So that was a really nice thing because we were trying something a little bit different. What we have done is that we have bought 4 candidates from that process. I'm going to go on to a 5th in a second. So we bought 4 candidates from that process into the next stage of interviews. We have a 5th candidate, and for very good reason, the 5th candidate couldn't attend the assessment centre. Was very prepared to pull out had we not been prepared to see that person. So pre the assessment centre, we knew this person couldn't come to the session. We had a conversation with the recruiter and agreed to interview that person, but in a very similar way to the assessment centre. So the candidate within that process went through a similar process, and as a result of that exercise on Friday, we have progressed that person through to the final interviews. So it's important to say that there was assessment centre, but 1 candidate carried on through that. We are going to conduct panel interviews this Thursday coming, and from those panel interviews, 2 outcomes could happen. Well, I suppose 3, but I doubt the 3rd. I'll put this as the first. So the first is that we don't appoint anybody at all because we don't think we've got a suitable candidate. I think highly unlikely because we've got some brilliant people coming to the party. The second outcome is that we absolutely find the candidate that we think is the standout candidate, and we make an appointment post this week. And the third outcome is that we find two candidates, but we can't quite decide which one we want. And we go through to a further stage, which either might be a secondary interview or something in a less formal way. So it might be that we have dinner with the candidates and just chat to them and find out their philosophies and so on. So I think the message from today is we're very sad to lose Sue, but we're delighted with the quality of candidates that we've got coming forward, and we hope to announce pre the Commonwealth Games the appointment of a great new CEO. So, and actually, I should comment to Janet as well, because Janet, obviously, the previous CEO to Sue. So we've got some, these people who we're seeing have got some tough acts to follow. So, Janet, thank you very much, but equally, thank you to Sue as well. And I'm sure we've got a good candidate. So that's that update. The second update really relates to an issue which has been very public in the sense through social media, through email dialogue with clubs, and has been out in the sport and been quite extensively covered. I want to do this in my language. So for anybody watching on the YouTube thing, this is my language, my sort of sequencing of events. I'd really value others if I make a blooper and get something wrong in terms of the terminology. So Graham, please correct me if I'm wrong in any way, and Claire, correct me if I'm wrong in any way. So at the 2021 AGM, we went through quite an extensive recruitment process. We went through the votes, we appointed some new directors to the board. And at that point in time, two of the directors, the elected directors that the AGM voted on, at the point of the AGM were non-club members. Now, at the point of the AGM, through an administrative mistake on our part, and I hold my hands up to that, we weren't aware that they were non-club members, and we weren't aware that that box hadn't been ticked on the paperwork. So at the point of the AGM, the two directors in question, both were elected and both were ineligible. So we hold our hands up to that ineligible appointment. What we then did, those board members joined the board, they continued to operate, and at a point in time, we received a complaint. And the complaint was, you have appointed ineligible directors. So at the point of that complaint, that was factually correct. We investigated it internally, so we went through a process of investigation internally, and we deemed that yes, the complaint was correct. We had appointed two ineligible directors. At that point in time, in a very similar way to has happened for quite some time in history, we made those two directors club members. And so they were made club members in order to make them valid members within the sport. Subsequently, those two appointed directors made a decision primarily because of the complaint. Well, in one instance because of the complaint, in another instance because of just a change of life circumstances, decided to leave the board. From a very personal point of view, I was very sad about that because there was some fantastic people with some really great credentials who I think would have added a lot of value to the sport, but they chose to leave. At that point in time, we co-opted Dave, who has been elected as a director today. So congratulations, Dave, on that. And we co-opted Dave because Dave had been part of the interview process, had performed incredibly well, and in fact, only just narrowly missed out on that appointment process. And therefore, it was a great opportunity for us to bring Dave into the board as a co-opted director. So we get to the point of thinking to a point that we had held our hands up, owned up to the fact, and in fact we publicised that on the website and explained that we had made a technical error, and we publicised that on the website. Unfortunately, and completely in the right of the person, the complainant decided that that wasn't satisfactory and carried on with their complaint. The big push from that complainant was that the complainant felt, in addition to breaching the articles, we'd breached the Sport England Code of Conduct, Code of Governance, and therefore Sport England should review our performance and assess whether we had or hadn't. So we approached Sport England and we asked Sport England to review our performance in this matter. Sport England kindly did that, and they did that in a very diligent way. And having gone through that exercise, they deemed that we hadn't broken the Code of Governance at all, that we hadn't breached the Code of Governance. So we got a clean bill of health from Sport England, and Sport England have subsequently written to the AGM and to the sport to explain that there was no breach of the Code of Governance and that they're very happy with our performance. And I think that's illustrated by the funding that we've received and the confidence Sport England are showing. The complainant at that point still was unhappy with the exercise and asked us to take independent legal assessment of our performance. And so at that point, we appointed Graham, who is an independent lawyer, not connected to the sport, no background within the sport, to assess our performance. And Graham went through that. And again, for anybody who wants to see that report, we're happy to let people see that report. Graham, I'm putting words in your mouth and say, but I'm going to try and paraphrase this. Graham agreed that at the point of election, these two, we had breached the articles, and these two directors were elected inappropriately. However, it was a technical oversight, and that there was no intentional breach of the articles, nor was there any attempt to cover up the mistake that we had made. And Graham, correct me if I'm.
I didn't see any. I wasn't asked to look at that specifically, but there was nothing in the work that I did that suggested to me that there was any mischief. And it was, as you say, an administrative problem that meant that at the time of appointment, the two elected directors, they just weren't appointable because they didn't qualify. In a similar way, I mentioned in the report, if they had been 15 when they were appointed, the fact that they're now 16 doesn't fix it, because
Correct.
They need to be 16 when they. So that was the problem. At the time of appointments, they weren't members, and so they weren't appointable, and so they weren't. Their status wasn't valid.
Great.
So that needed to be addressed.
All right. Thank you, Graham. So we undertook this legal review. We had hoped that that would conclude matters and we could move on. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case, and the complainant carried on with the complaint but changed tack slightly. In changing tack, there was quite a personal attack on myself, on Claire, on Sue as the chief executive, suggesting that we'd operated in a very unethical, inappropriate, malicious way somehow for our own advantage. I don't want to comment on the nature of that, but it was quite difficult to read. However, we wanted to remain true to our values. We wanted to remain very transparent in our approach. And so we asked the board, without Claire and myself present, and without Sue present, to be able to give either a vote of confidence or no confidence in us as directors acting on their behalf, in terms of being chair and senior independent director, vice chair and CEO. The board met, the board concluded that they were very satisfied with our performance, that they felt we had acted ethically and in all the right ways, and that they requested that we continued. I'm going to whiz through this next bit. So the complainant elected not to accept that as a final point, has carried on complaining, has carried on writing to clubs, has carried on sort of putting information out that in fact we believe in many instances is factually incorrect and misrepresenting a process. That has resulted in a number of attempts to put forward resolutions under the Companies Act for the removal of directors. That actually never came to fruition, but was a suggestion, and then a vote of no confidence in ourselves at the AGM. And again, that resolution, for a number of reasons, didn't pass the tests to come. The reason for raising all of this, and apologies that you're all having to listen to this because it's not the nicest thing to talk about, is just to say, and I'm saying this on behalf of other people more than myself in the first instance, as you all know, being a volunteer is quite a tough gig. And, you know, Claire particularly, and then I feel, you know, for Sue, Sam, Rob, the hub team, everybody on the board, being a volunteer, you do that because you want to put something back into the sport. You do that because you care, and you do that in all the best intents. Will you 100% get everything exactly right all of the time? I doubt it. In fact, I'd be gobsmacked if every volunteer does everything perfectly. So the key thing within this is just to say, all the time I am chair, I will absolutely make sure that we are acting in an ethical, honourable, transparent way. So we will always be there to answer questions. We will never shy away from them. We will go to any conversations that people want to have. But what I also want to say is that I will do everything I can to protect the integrity and the people within our organisation. Even if they're volunteers or staff, it doesn't matter to me. It's just really important that we're protecting the people. The very concluding remark within this is just to say we feel this is fairly vexatious in its nature. We feel it is quite aggressive in its nature, and we intend to draw this now to a conclusion. So as far as we are concerned, we have gone through all of the assessments that we can possibly go through to assess our performance, and we've got really important things to do in terms of developing the sport and growing the sport. And as volunteers have finite amounts of time, we are not going to be investing that time in dealing with this specific complainant. Now, anybody else who walks into the sport with a complaint, we will deal with in the proper way. But on this issue, we will be concluding matters. So I really do apologise for the lengthy diatribe. I've tried to be as honest and as open as I can. Claire Graham, if I factually got anything wrong, no?
I think so, no.
Nothing significant now.
Great. Okay, good. Let's move on to more fun things. So, yeah, good. Okay. And I managed to do that all in my head, so now I've got a headache. Good. All right. Thank you. So, Simon, over to you in terms of the foundation.
Is there anywhere in particular for the YouTube audience that you want me to see?
The camera sees.
Yeah, sure. All right, thank you everyone for having me, and welcome everyone who's in person. It's lovely to see faces in real life, and to the board. Thank you for having me as well. I just wanted to update you really on some things the foundation's been up to in the past year. Really just three key takeouts to talk about as we came out of lockdown. We had funding that we were able to finally activate, which was good news on all fronts. So we had our sitting funding that we'd actually secured the previous year, but that's now come into activity. So we've managed to have our the nets that were produced for the pandemic safety issues that were faced. They were created and distributed amongst the clubs, so that's fantastic. The second part was that we also were able to secure more return to play funding for our officiating working group. So that's fantastic that we've now been able to put that to work and getting lots of equipment and courses up and running for that working group. So that's fantastic as well. Equally excited to share that we've had one of our partnerships, our very first partnerships that we've been able to secure, which is the Disadvantaged Youth Program that we're running with Aston Villa now underway. So it's a fantastic effort by the group, and we look forward to sharing more details on how that all goes as well. In addition to that, we've also had 2 awards. We've been able to give 2 awards to clubs in sitting, and that has been
Nottingham Rockets.
Nottingham Rockets
And Hull and East Yorkshire.
Hull and East Riding. Yeah. So we've also given away 2 awards in this year. So that's probably the first takeout, and fantastic to have now that we've got out of the pandemic and into actual activity, being able to see and have people playing with that sport's fantastic. The second part I wanted to really share was the assistance or the securing of more return to play funding, this time with the help of Janet, thank you very much Janet, of almost or up just over 250k. So this was indirect funding, if you like, secured on behalf of clubs all up and down the country. We had a total of, I think it was 48 applications that benefited 120 clubs. So a huge chunk of money, and lots of equipment, resources has been and is still being distributed amongst all the clubs. So fantastic result, and that's another key milestone just to point out as well for that. And then finally, let me just tweak my notes. The third key takeout was really about just having a regular presence with one of our Christmas options. So these are just becoming an annual event for the foundation. It's really important to start to develop and establish what these key calendar events are for the foundation, and really start to get a bit of legacy going for the foundation. People understand and know that it's coming, and they look out for it. So you know, as we grow and evolve, we'll hopefully add more and more of these types of events to our calendar. So really good news to have something so successful, started so early, and we're looking forward to delivering more of those this year. And then finally, I think my final note was really just you know, what we're planning on delivering for the next 12 months. You know, we've got no staff, as you know, so we work 100% off, you know, the board, volunteers, and we rely on our partners for delivering a lot of our programs. So in the next 12 months, as we sort of continue to come out of lockdown, we're looking to our partners to deliver the campaigns that we're working on, which are continuing the success of the Aston Villa Disadvantaged Youth Program, but also adding to the LGBTQ campaign that we have on the cards for this year, and producing and delivering some fantastic resources that we want to get out into the volleyball community, and hopefully wider. So we're looking to extend our reach, not just within the community, but beyond volleyball itself as a code. So as you can hear, there's lots happening, and we're only picking up the pace as we grow, and there's lots of activity and plans and prospects for the next 12 to 18 months. So I encourage everyone to continue to look at our website, have a look at our annual report, and just check out what we're doing. And yeah, just follow us, give us a follow on Facebook, LinkedIn, all of that good stuff, and we look forward to being here next year again.
And if you've got your credit card, I've got my card reader.
Janet, you get me to tap that bloody thing. You didn't tell me that it was anything to do with paying for stuff. Yeah. Good. Okay. So Janet will be standing by the door as you exit. Yeah. Good. Okay. So Simone, thank you very much. Amazing performance, and just really exciting, because I think along with loads of other stuff, it's really gaining momentum, and that's exactly where we want to be and doing what we want to do. So thank you very much. Claire, Birmingham 2022. What a nice way to wrap things
I'm
up.
going to stand up purely to bring the energy. So 33 days today, Birmingham 2022 opening ceremony will kick off, and I'm looking after our legacy program and what we do in the sport, in and around the games, to really bring the energy in and bring some of the excitement from the games to all of us up and down the country, not just to Birmingham. And Adam and Sam alluded to that we've now got our athletes. They're absolutely flying in the competitions they're entering. They've had a brilliant run up to the games. So that's exciting in itself. But what else can we do in and around it? And we've talked about it being our time to shine, our time as a sport to shine around Birmingham 2022. Lots of you will have seen the video which sets out our legacy targets I haven't gone through, I'm not going to go through the whole video today, but I'm going to talk about a few select one of those, and particularly things around the games that you're likely to see. Sneak preview of what the venue might look like. If anyone's been to Birmingham, it is now taking shape. We had 20 truckloads of sand turn up yesterday. I was very busy with my shovel, getting them in onto the warm-up courts. I've got a photo of the venue if anyone wants to look at it later. It's not for social media consumption, but I'm happy to share it with anyone in this room. Next slide, please. So our legacy is we've got 4 legacy pillars. They focus around venue and equipment, participation, volunteers, and profile and performance. So taking each of those in turn, venue and equipment, this is about, obviously Smithfield is a pop-up venue. How do we use that to create a legacy venue? And the plans on that are very advanced now, so we hope to make an announcement around that in due course. That's a watch this space one. We also are committing to clubs any equipment that's left over from the games that we're able to use that aren't going into legacy venue, we will distribute in a fair and transparent process. So we make sure that the clubs get to benefit from that as well. In terms of the next one, so during the games, you see here, we're aiming to get 2,500 people engaged at a live site and 1,000 people referred into you guys, into the local clubs to come and do that. So a couple of things I just wanted to touch on here because these are imminent. So the live site, so the venue in Birmingham is down behind the ball ring. The venue itself is a ticketed area, obviously, if people have got tickets, but right outside our venue, we're super, super lucky in that we have a festival site on site. One of the only sports that has that benefit. The other festival sites are spread away from sporting venues. The festival site is free to get into, so anyone who's not got tickets, or if you've got tickets, make sure you leave time to come to the festival site in advance. It's a real party atmosphere. They are doing, there's lots of music and food stalls and all other kind of stuff there. Because we're in the heart of Digbeth in Birmingham as well, there will be big parties on the Saturday nights and Sunday nights. So look out for loads of information around that. But in particular for volleyball, we will have 2 activation zones within that site as well. So for one of them, we'll have the speed cage, which lots of you have seen, and members of the public can come along and try and test their spike speed against various other things. We've got massive stand boards with how you can compare whether you're faster than a tortoise or you're up there with one of the sprinters. So you can try and find where you sit on that element. And then what we'll do is we'll collect data from those people who are interested in seeing more of the sport. So maybe it's spectating, so we can invite them to cup finals, UKBT events, or that want to learn how to play, and we can direct them to local clubs. What we're asking clubs to do is try and run taster sessions during the game, and there'll be loads of comms around this early next week. So this is a sneak peek of something to look out for. With some of the funding that Kev talked about earlier in the I&D fund, we're going to use that to provide upskilling opportunities. So there will be a host of activator courses, which will run online in 2 weeks before the games, with some really hot tutors. So I can't reveal the names just yet, but it's looking good. And that will help you with get your club members involved, help them to understand how they can run an activation session, how you can get around whether or not you've got the equipment, whether you put up grass nets, etc. Just get people engaged in the sport. What we will do in exchange is make sure we're going to have a venue event finder section on the website, which is like a map with buttons on, so you'll be able to go and see where your nearest session is. And on the live sites, we'll have QR codes, etc., to get people to that so they can go and find you in their local network when they go home after the games. So loads of exciting stuff around that. The funding takes us for 24 months after the games. So the games is in 33 days, but the fund doesn't stop there. We've got 2 years where we're going to be embedding this. So what I would say to clubs is look out for the opportunities in that. There will be lots more funded workforce opportunities for you to upskill coaches and referees within your clubs as well. And one of the things that they will see was in partnership with the foundation that Simone talked about is the partnership with Aston Villa and engaging young children within the Birmingham area. Next one, please, Sam. So volunteers are the heartbeat of our sport. And again, some of the funding and the legacy is really around supporting those volunteers to progress in the sport. We are aiming to target over 300 new volunteers across the sport as part of the legacy of the games. Some of that is activators, some of it is young leaders, so our courtside assistants who are the ball retrievers and rakers at the games will all be offered young leader training, referees and coaches. So lots of stuff will be going on there in 2 years after the games. What we'll also do is make sure we capture the volunteers in and around the game. So whether that's the NTOs or the Commonwealth collectives, we have over 100 Commonwealth collective volunteers specific to volleyball, plus loads of others in and around that venue, and encouraging them to continue their volunteering journey in their local clubs where they come from, because they come from across the country, and also inviting them to potentially use their volunteer skills at our future events like cup finals and UKBT as well. So the final limb of our strategy is profile and performance. So here we're looking at how we can raise the profile of the sport for everyone's benefit and how we can continue the performance programme across a whole variety of different areas. So we've set Stuart some good social media targets to try and increase the following and the profile of Volleyball England, and also to work with our Team England athletes to increase their profile, to capture those spectators that I talked about earlier so that we can engage them in the sport going forward, to help our staff, Birmingham 22 staff and our key volunteers into International Federation and Commission roles, and also to support our teams on the journey after this. So we've talked about some of the funding that they've had in preparation for Commonwealth Games. There is also some funding for preparation for Paris 2024, and we want to make sure we're continuing to support the teams as they go into Victoria 26 and LA 28. So this isn't about flashing a pan. It's our time to shine now and really deliver it going forward. So as I say, we've got 4 legacy pillars, 1 time to shine. That means it's our time to shine right now, and this is the best opportunity for us to do it. So if we all get together, get behind it, then it's going to be an absolute smashing event and a smashing 2 years following that too.
Awesome. That deserves a round of applause. And Kev, Sam, by the way, it's not to say yours didn't, but that was hugely uplifting. Yeah, I mean, what a great way to sort of conclude all the presentations from today. How very exciting, and well done, Claire and the team, for pulling all that together. Good. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we will do questions on the subject matter of the AGM. I'll do a few closing remarks when we've gone through that. We'll then close the AGM and finish the YouTube presentation, and then we'll happily take any other questions outside of that.
Can I ask a quick question?
Of course you can, Jenny.
So we know that our Sport England funding is secured for the next 5 years, but the challenge we've got is we've got 10% inflation at the moment. How are we going to, it's great to see on the slide that you've got this target that's 48%, but the majority of that is our core funding. How are we going to make sure we can still maintain the service that we need to be able to make sure the sport continues with that kind of inflationary rate?
It's a really good question, Janet. And in one way, I'm going to throw it back to the foundation to say that you are an incredibly valuable tool in this process, because if the foundation does its job in the way that it wants to, then that means more revenues coming into the sport and a growth. And it's the same as many other governing bodies. We've got to diversify our funding. We've got to be creative in the way we look at trusts and foundations, digital fundraising, commercial, in terms of sponsorship partnerships and so on. So I think rest assured we will do all we can. And Janet, you'll know this very well. Very difficult with a small group of people to be able to prioritise where you put those resources. And you've got Commonwealth Games coming, so you chuck all the staff on that. We had return to play, and so you put a load of staff into that. I think, fingers crossed, we finish the Commonwealth Games, we move into that legacy thing. We will be able to focus on things like income diversification more effectively.
And development of the commercial offer. We've been waiting for that commercial offer for some time, so I think that's important for you and for us.
I agree.
Perhaps a quick plug there as well. So there is a commercial working group which has been set up. We've got lots of volunteers that want to sit on that working group, but at the moment it's lacking a delivery lead. So if there's anyone out there that feels that's an area they can contribute to, then it would be great to hear from you, because if we get a delivery lead in there, we can really start to accelerate that. That's not quite few. There's also a delivery lead position for networks and clubs as well. And again, lots of people wanting to sit on that, but no one quite feels they can commit the time to be the delivery lead or have the skill set to be the delivery lead. So if there's anyone out there that would like to do that, then please do get in touch.
Great. Any other questions to do with the AGM content. No, going, gone. Okay, so just my closing remarks are to say I am, as the chair, immensely proud of what we've done, and that's. I'm trying to think how long I have been chair now. Seems like a longish time, but 5 or 6 years, 5 years, 5 years. And it just seems like so many things are going in the right direction, and so many positive outcomes are happening, and they have been, through Janet's time, through Sue's time, and now we're going to move into a new era with a new person. So let's keep that momentum going. Let's absolutely nail all the opportunities we've got. And let's remain very proud of where we've got to. So on that point, Stuart, I'm going to ask you to finish our YouTube presentation. Goodbye, anybody who's living in the virtual world.